supply chainers, wherever you are in the world. This is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey with you today. Are you ready? Let's talk supply chain. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thoughts and Coffee. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I'm the founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain, the Blended podcast, and the founder of the Blended Pledge. And I'm super excited to be here with you today. We've got a lot of exciting things happening here at Let's Talk Supply Chain, including something very special that is happening on Thursday night that I cannot wait to share with you. Plus, Danny, the newest host of one of our newest live shows from Overhaul, is here with me today as my guest, and we're going to be talking about what you can expect from him and his new show, which I'm super excited about. And then we're going to be talking about supply chain theft. We're going to be talking about cyber attacks, what you need to know in 2023, and so much more. But before we do that, let's get to what is new. So we have a brand new episode over on the Let's Talk Supply Chain podcast. You can listen to it wherever you subscribe to podcasts. You can also go to the Let's Talk Supply Chain YouTube page. And this is my conversation with GoBalt. GoBalt is a really interesting company here in Canada, and I met with them at Home Delivery World. We had a really great discussion about sustainability and carbon credits, and we talk a little bit about that in this particular episode. So it's definitely a do not miss. So it's episode 312 wherever you subscribe to the show. So definitely go and check that out. What do we have next? Ooh, I was featured in I was featured in a Forbes article with SAP last week. Now, Audrey and I are going to dive a little bit deeper into this particular article, but I know that Bayram was asking for supply chain trends in 2023. So I wanted to give you guys a head start by showcasing this article and giving you the link to this article, because I want you to come back next week when I'm talking to Audrey and bring all of your questions and comments, et cetera, et cetera. So go and check that out. It was super exciting, and a big shout out to SAP for having me. Now we have got some live live events happening this week. So Friday, Hope White is going live with No Bullshipping, and she's going to be talking about supply chain logistics and procurement. Where are we going? That is happening at 10 a.m. Eastern on Friday. But before that, this is where you want to be on Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. That's right. Superstar Game Face, which is our brand new game show, has come to fruition. And we are going live with this game show on Thursday. And we've got some really great contestants, really great games, and we're going to have some holiday fun. So I hope that you can join us December 22nd. We've already got over 40 or 50 people signed up. We've just put the link in the comments. So go and click that link and click the attend button so you do not miss this, because let me tell you, it is a barrel of laughs. Bayram, you just joined us, and we just put a link to a Forbes article talking about 2023 trends, which I know you were asking about last week. So definitely go and check out that article. What else do we have going on? Let me see here. I think I just need to move this over. Oh, we have a giveaway. So if you guys haven't seen this, you all know about the Blended Pledge. And if you don't, go to the LinkedIn page for the Blended Pledge. We are giving away 2 free TPM 23 registration passes. So TPM 23 happens at the end of February. It's put on by the Journal of Commerce. It's the Trans-Pacific Maritime Conference. We are giving away 2 free passes. Now you have to like the post. You've got to tag somebody. Let us know why you should win it. Plus, you need to sign up for the Blended newsletter as well. We've just put the link in there, so definitely go and check that out. And lastly, I wanted to let you know that obviously we have a Let's Talk Supply Chain TikTok page. This is one of the ones that are going viral right now, and I wanted to share it with you. because we want to have some fun over on TikTok with you. So definitely go and follow us because Abby creates some fun content and we'd love to see you over there. Anyways, now there is so much going on. And I'm so thankful for you. Just stay with me during all of that. And now it's time to bring up my guest. So without further ado, Danny, welcome to Thoughts and Coffee.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's so great to see you. And you are our newest host of our brand new live show. So, why don't you tell everybody who you are, what you do, and then also tell us about your new show? What can people expect? Why should they watch? All sorts of things.
Sure, thanks. So my name is Danny Ramon. I am the intelligence and response manager over at Overhaul, and I've been handling supply chain intelligence in various forms for over a decade at this point. Whether that's cargo theft or anything else that's just going to disrupt the flow of the logistics, of the supply chain. Whether that's going to be an infrastructure collapse, labor disputes, weather events, corruption, or any kind of civil unrest or labor disputes, things like that. And when we talk about the intelligence perspective, which is my new show, just had episode 1 last week. We're going to be airing every second Tuesday of the month here on Let's Talk Supply Chain, and we're really going to try and give you the most up-to-date intelligence perspective as far as the supply chain. What we're seeing as real time as we can in the field. That's going to be trends from law enforcement, insights from industry leaders. We're going to try and get some regional law enforcement folks on there so we can talk about the regional cargo theft crews, what differentiates them from operations in other parts of the country. And in January, actually, we're going to have our vice president of fusion intelligence and response is going to be on the show to talk about what's going to be different about 2023 going forward. How exactly has logistics and the supply chain shifted post-pandemic?
It's like true crime for supply chain, right?
Absolutely. I mean, especially with supply chain making mainstream news this year, I think all of us have gotten kind of excited. Last year, I was telling my wife, I was like, this is my Thanksgiving dinner to shine. I'm going to have so much to talk about that's not political.
I love that. But think about it, right? True crime for supply chain. Everybody loves true crime podcasts, and we're bringing it to you once a month and giving you the inside scoop. Now, we're going to be talking about why that's important to you with some of the articles that we have coming up, because one of the things that I just saw today is that cyber attacks, supply chain is the second biggest cyber threat in 2023. Big, big, big. And we all need to know about that. But before we do that, let's get to our poll of the week. And then you're going to give us a bit of a market update, what people should be looking for and looking out for in the next month. But so our poll of the week last week, the question we asked you, do you own an ugly Christmas sweater? Well, everybody can see I have my Marvel's Christmas sweater on today. This is the one that I'm known for. I've been wearing it for a few years now. I found it in Walmart a long, long, long time ago. I love it. My nephews really like it because it's Marvel. And anyways, so I definitely have one, but 53% of you said no, which I am very surprised at. 47% of you said, heck yeah. I mean, I thought majority of people owned an ugly sweater, whether it was Christmas or not. But I mean, I just thought that they did. And we had 714 votes. Danny, do you have one? What do you think about these results?
I do have one specifically for the events that are called for, where you've got an ugly holiday sweater event or something like that. Also, I'm a big Die Hard fan, so of course my Christmas sweater has to do with Die Hard.
Okay.
So.
See, we all have our like little personalities and they shine through in our ugly Christmas sweaters. But I thought that was a lot of fun, just sort of asking and seeing if everybody has one. We had a lot of amazing comments on that as well. All right, before we dive into our first article, which is really going to cover some stats on supply chain theft and things like that. Can you give us a bit of a market update from what you guys are doing at Overhaul? What are your customers asking you about? What are you having to, talk about? Maybe do a little bit more research on what is sort of top of mind for everybody right now going into 2023?
Well, right now, specifically speaking to supply chain security, some of the things that we're seeing are an increase of fraudulent pickups or deceptive thefts. So, as opposed to a straight theft where you're just going to, covertly go and just take the entire tractor and trailer or just the trailer without the knowledge of the driver. These are more strategic. They tend to involve technology, whether it's going to be a fabricated or stolen identity of either a driver or a carrier or both. They're using that to set up legitimate appointments to just go and pick up the freight. When that happens, if you're the victim of that, you're not going to know about it until it just doesn't arrive where it's supposed to be going. Unless, of course, you've got real-time visibility into your shipment. You can see what's going on with it real time. You can sort of uncover these red flags before they've happened, before it's no longer recoverable.
So you're saying that people are scheduling pickups to pick up product, showing up, but they're not the actual carrier that was actually dispatched to be there?
In some cases, it is that. In some cases, they technically are the carrier that was dispatched, but they are not. They're posing as a carrier. They fabricated an identity. They've built a carrier identity from the ground up in order to pursue stolen freight, or they've exactly just stolen the identity of a carrier who's supposed to go, whether that carrier was booked legitimately or not. A lot of times they will steal this identity and then book it under that fraudulent identity. So they are the people who booked the load, but they're not the people you should be giving your freight to.
Wow. Like that's not something that we talk about or hear about every day in supply chain. And I'm just thinking about if I was in the audience right now as a supply chainer thinking, this is something else that I need to think about and deal with. Like, how do you even spot it?
Absolutely. I mean, you've got to look for red flags, right? A lot of the things that come up that are the most obvious of red flags are going to be temporary signage on the trucks, on the tractors themselves, because all tractors are required to have the USDOT number, the MC carrier number, et cetera. There's several sets of numbers that they're required to have on the tractor. Usually, those are done in like professional looking decals, whether it's a vinyl wrap or it's just actual. Like mailbox stickers that you have on there. We've seen some of them come up there with a piece of printer paper with the information printed on it, just taped on there with packing tape. That's obviously a red flag. If there is also, you want to go a little bit farther than that, look up the DOT number that's on the tractor. Make sure it matches the name of the carrier that's on the tractor. That's one of the things we've seen. They're just going to put a DOT number on there. It doesn't come back to the same name that is plastered on the tractor. Same thing as far as temporary signage for any other equipment. If there are temporary license plates or missing license plates, that's a red flag. A big one that seems obvious, but especially during the busy holiday shipping season, things are going at a breakneck pace. Often security lags behind a little bit, as people's attention are stretched a little bit thin. If the driver doesn't match the photo on his driver's license, that's a big red flag. We've seen so many cases of the driver showing up and it's like, I can give you a little bit one way or the other, but if you're looking at a guy who's 5'5" and 180 pounds soaking wet and his driver's license says that he's 6'2" and 280 pounds, that's not the guy.
Wow, but these are things that you don't really think about. So now, supply chainers, we also need to be detectives. Just an FYI, for 2023, we also need to be detectives. But I think that brings up a really good point around training. Because a lot of times there's a lot of people that the driver needs to go through from a frontline perspective. And we need to make sure that those frontline workers are A, safe, and B, they know protocol if they do see a red flag, and C, what those red flags are. What are we looking for? What are we asking the drivers for? Are we asking to see their driver's license? Are we checking the DOT number? And it's just not something that we necessarily think about all the time, but they're measures that we need to take going into 2023. So everybody, if you have any questions about supply chain theft, et cetera, make sure that you're asking them in the comments right now, because we've only got Danny for another 15 minutes and we want to make sure that we're asking all of your pressing questions. Of course, he's going to be available after this, but definitely give us your comments as well. I want to say hi to Hamza and Rajesh over on my personal LinkedIn as well. Now, talking about theft, that is not the only theft that we are seeing. And that brings me to our first article, which is a white paper or that I think it's a white paper or an infographic that
There you
Overhaul put together, really talking about how supply chain theft is a real growing threat and what you need to know. Um, what they're saying is that supply chain professionals, you need to account for theft. So in North America, most of the theft is happening in transit. We now just found out that it's also happening at dock doors. In Europe and Asia, most of the theft is happening in warehouses. And in the US, most of the theft is in California, Texas, and Florida. Just to give you a couple of stats. And so, Danny, talk to us a little bit about some of these numbers that we're seeing. I mean, look, almost $500,000 in theft just in 2021. And that's just electronics alone.
Yeah, and that's the average value. Actually, that's not the total value. So
Oh,
that's the average value of electronic shipments stolen in 2021, right? So yeah, absolutely. When we look at this, we can see several things. Obviously, cargo theft is different across the globe. There's different actors who perform it. There's different ways to do it. One of the ways that's a great example of that is in Europe when shipments are stolen while in transit or over the road or in a truck, they frequently use soft-sided trailers, right? So a much more frequent form of theft there is going to be curtain slashing, where if it's stopped at a lay-by or a rest area along the highway, they're just going to slash the soft-sided curtain and take as much as they can, as
wow.
much of that cargo as they can. Um,
So that is a question to ask your carrier, right?
oh,
What's the
absolutely.
security on the back of the truck when you're moving my goods? Just for
Mhm.
an
Yeah,
example.
exactly. Absolutely.
And it says 100 rail theft went up to 160%, which I think is really crazy. And that
Mhm.
49% there says that most of the theft actually happens on the weekend. But a really nice stat that came out of this says that Overhaul returned $1 million worth of electronics to one of your customers, which is crazy. And I see that Christian has a question for us. We've got some younger capacity reps here in my office. Danny, what is the number one thing we can teach them in order to recognize double brokering theft on a daily basis?
That's a great question. So double brokering, which can lead to theft, doesn't always, but it quite often does, has become almost standard practice with the capacity issues that we've been experiencing for the last 2 years and spot rates rising. We've seen carriers just want to maximize profit, right? So if there's any extra room in a trailer, they're going to try and pack more cargo on there so they can charge twice for the same trip. Now, the biggest red flag for that is going to be what we've called tamper-prone seal hasps. Right. So on the back of a trailer, there's a hasp that's going to hold your bolt seal. That's going to, keep your trailer sealed until it arrives at destination. Usually, it has a serial number on it, and it prevents you from opening the trailer without breaking the seal. And then, you'll know that somebody's entered the trailer. Well, that hasp is usually secured by a rivet. Now, what we've seen is that a lot of people are drilling out those rivets and replacing them with a nut and a bolt. And obviously, if you just unscrew the bolt, you can take off the entire hasp without breaking the seal, open both trailer doors, have free access to the cargo, whether you're going to be loading or unloading. And then you can reseal it back up with no damage, no disturbance at all to the seal, and nobody's going to be any the wiser that you've actually opened that up. So I want to stress, first of all, that there are no silver bullets. There's no just one red flag that you need to keep a lookout for. But that's probably the most consistent one that we've seen. And as we start, easing into the age of capacity sort of returning to normal or maybe a new normal, and folks are going to have the luxury of turning away trailers and drivers and carriers. If you see a bolt on the back of the trailer that allows them to take off the seal without breaking it, I would absolutely advise against just refusing that driver a load. Don't give them any of your cargo.
Wow, so many things that we can think about. And Christian, thank you so much for your question. And again, we've only got a little bit of time with Danny, but he does come back every single month. So be sure to tune into the show because he's going to be talking more about that. So let's talk about our second article. So this one is about supply chain cyber attacks, and I mentioned this at the top of the show because as I was reading this article, the supply chain is the second biggest cyber threat for 2023. What they're talking about is because of the pandemic, they've seen how fragile our supply chains are. And so they know what they need to target because we are so interconnected. And so if they target one aspect of supply chain, They are looking to topple the flow of what we're doing and how we're moving critical products. What does that mean? Well, they're grounding supply chain to a halt so that they can make their demands, and their demands are going to be met. And two of the biggest parts of the supply chain, or organizations within a supply chain, that are being targeted right now are logistics firms and raw material manufacturers, because those are the spots that they see are the weakest. And so one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this up is because we're talking about theft and the good work that Overhaul is doing, but also because we don't talk about how important this is enough, especially with our logistics firms, because it means the difference between your supply chain working or not working and us being able to get critical products. Danny, what did you think when you saw this article?
I thought it is packed full of truth. Absolutely. One of the things that's brought up in this article, which we've already spoken about today, but in a different capacity, is talking about the weakest link, right? You're only as secure as your weakest link. And that's the case with cybersecurity. It's the case with dock security as well. I mean, if all of your security guards are trained to look for that nut and bolt on the back of the trailer door, that's great. But if the 10th one doesn't know about that and he lets it go, that's still a vulnerability that needs to be addressed. So it's definitely one of the things you need to keep on top of. I mean, cargo thieves are agile, right? They don't have any overhead operations or anything to move around when the market shifts. Cyber attackers are even more agile. Their entire operation is digital, so they can react at the drop of a hat, and they've got bleeding edge technology at their fingertips too to do it. So we're talking about increasing threats. You have to keep on top of what you need to do to protect yourself. I remember, several years ago, it was like, oh, don't download any attachments from any suspicious email. Now you don't even need to download an attachment. It's definitely don't follow any links, don't open any emails that you aren't expecting. There are fileless malware now that's massively scary to me, because it's just so much easier for them to infiltrate your system now. And like you said, they know exactly what to attack. They're going for the highest probability of a payoff. And with logistics and supply chain being in the mainstream news, and everyone has seen how one choke point can just have knock-on effects globally, that makes it a ripe target. That obviously, these folks don't want to be the next Ever Given stuck in the Suez Canal, right? That everybody knows about globally, and everybody is blaming for why whatever it is not under the tree or on the table this year. So it's absolutely something that you need to keep on top of, not just every year, every quarter, because the technology around this is evolving rapidly. And so you need to make sure that you are on top of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even just this morning here in Toronto, we heard about a cyber attack just to the Sick Kids Hospital, right? And that's a hospital, and so they can get to us anywhere, anyhow. And so it's really important for us to be speaking with our vendors, our providers, talking about what measures they have in place for some of that data and what that could actually do for your supply chain, whether good or bad, right? And these are the things that we need to talk about. You mentioned employees. One of the things on that list that they mention in this particular articles is that employees are a weak link too, but only purely for the fact that we need to make sure that everybody's trained. Everybody knows what to look for. We can't just expect that people are going to know what to ask, what to think about, what to look for. We have to train everybody on this. And, with labor shortages and sometimes with labor going in and out, we need to make sure that we're on top of it. One of the other things that you mentioned, and it's going into our third article, is why they're targeting 3PLs and logistics firms. Well, in this particular article, you guys talk about how 3PLs need to differentiate themselves, which we all know. But one of the stats in this article says that logistics or 3PL market is going to grow to 1.75 trillion by 2026. That's 0.75 trillion more than I think isn't it last year, 2020 or 2021? That is a huge growth. Sorry?
No, I believe it was 2020. Yeah, but it is a huge growth.
It's a huge growth, and it makes them a huge, huge target. So talk to us a little bit about the 3PL market, how, 3PLs need to differentiate themselves. I think one of the things that they also need to think about is what we're talking about today is the theft. How are we going to protect our customers? How are we going to protect their cargo?
Right. And again, there's no silver bullet, but the one thing that's going to cover the most ground when it comes to making sure that your shipments are secure is going to be real-time visibility, right? If you're a 3PL, you've got a disparate network of carriers and drivers all over the country carrying various things. You want to make sure that you know at any given time where everything is, right? Because again,
Yeah.
just like with a guard check at a loading dock, or just like employees, with cybersecurity, it's all about the weakest link, right? These thieves are agile, like I mentioned, and they are knowledgeable for what happens in the supply chain. They're going to exploit that weakest link. They are very risk averse. So they're going to go after the point in the supply chain where they're going to be able to obtain their desired freight with as little risk to them as possible, as little risk of capture or detection as possible.
Right. Talk to me about real time visibility, because we hear about it all the time, and I
Right.
feel like different people have different meanings for real time visibility. So talk to us a little bit about what real time visibility means to you at Overhaul.
Okay, well, real-time visibility, first of all, is real time. You've got to know at least within the last couple minutes where your shipment is, what condition it is. We're talking any of the conditions that matter to the condition of the freight, whether that's going to be temperature or humidity or anything like that. But you also want to know where your shipment is contextually, right? Like not just that it's in this Latin long at this particular time, but you want to know, what's the weather in that particular location right now. What's the labor landscape look like? Is there a strike going on? What does the infrastructure look like in that particular location? Are they going to have a hard time getting out of there? Are they going to have to sit stationary for 3 or 4 days? Is there a strike coming down the line that's going to prevent your shipment from moving? Is rail capacity really crunched there and it's going to have to sit there for a long time? I mean, all of these things, there's a myriad of factors that are going to affect your shipment as it goes down the road. Knowing where your shipment is in relation to all those factors at any given time is what real-time visibility is. It also allows you to uncover any red flags like we were talking about when it comes to deceptive pickups or strategic thefts, things that might not have been discovered until you try and call the carrier to say, hey, how come the destination didn't receive their goods, and then you just don't get an answer for several days, and then you figure out what's happened.
Mhm. The
That's
alerts.
right.
Right? The alerts are really important so that you can
Mhm.
do something about it in real
Right.
time. And it's
Knowing
like Peter giving me the 5-minute warning on thoughts and coffee. We all need alerts for all sorts of different things. I think
exactly.
the other thing that this article mentioned that's really important to talk about is data. So a lot of organizations, and it actually says a stat here, 60% of organizations say that data analytics are important when they're looking to work with or partner with a 3PL. And so obviously we talk about technology a lot and digital transformation, et cetera, et cetera. But 3PLs really need to get their stuff together when it comes to technology, because your customers are counting on it and they're making their decisions based on the data analytics that you can actually provide to them. And 60% is a lot.
Yes, absolutely. And having access to that data, like you said, not only is just a differentiating factor because you have the data, but it's what you can do with the data. The fact that you can act
Yeah.
on the data, the fact that you can change your supply chain based on where you're seeing the most disruptions or the most
Yeah.
delays. You have the ability to react proactively instead of reactively.
Yeah. So I think a couple of things to keep in mind, right? The security. What are you offering your clients if you're a 3PL, or as a supply chain professional? What are your partners and vendors doing about security, online security, in-person security, right? Because they're both threats to what we're looking down into 2023, pretty much, right? And then
Mhm.
the data. What is the real-time visibility? What are the data analytics that you're getting from your vendors, and that you as a 3PL are providing or thinking about providing to your customers. So last but not least, we are going to talk about some upcoming events that we have for Let's Talk Supply Chain. Obviously, we've got Superstar Game Face coming up on Thursday, and I hope to see you all there because it's going to be really fun. I'm going to be at Manifest at the end of January. So January 30th to February 1st in Vegas. So hopefully I'm going to see you there. There's going to be a lot of people there. I'm also going to be in person at TPM Tech, which happens a few days before, I think February 23rd, 24th. And then I'm going to be at TPM as well in Long Beach. And then obviously we've got Superstar Game Face. We've got the Intelligence Perspective with Danny, happens every Tuesday at 1 p.m. or sorry, every second Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. We've also got First Things First. If you miss any of these live shows, go to Let's Talk Supply Chain YouTube page because you can catch up on all of them there, and you can catch up on Danny's first episode as well. We've got action items with DC over on the YouTube and so much more. I mean, Hope's going to be coming on live Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. Danny, it's been such a pleasure. You've given us so much to think about, and I cannot wait to join your live show every single month because the information is just going to keep coming, and you're going to really help us keep on top of our supply chain. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Sarah, for having me on today. It's been a blast.
Yeah, and thanks everybody for joining us. I'll see you next Tuesday, and happy holidays. Bye.